first met Mike when I was a student at Washington State University. I was dating his daughter, and I had a silk screening company over there that we would print a ton of t-shirts, and I first met him, he walked into our big warehouse, and his eyes just lit up when he saw all of our equipment. And I remember Amy rolling her eyes because she knew she was about to lose her dad for about 3 hours. And we just hit it off famously. He came in, he looked at all of our equipment, he helped me recalibrate our conveyor belts, and he looked at our three-phase electrical heating system, which I didn't even know was three-phase, and by the time he had left, we were producing 12 extra shirts per hour, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for us over at Coleman, it was a huge deal, and it was really cool. And so we got along right away, and that was my first experience with him. Was that he just was this guy who could fix anything, who could do anything, who loved fixing things. If his house needed a new foundation, he would jack the house up himself and pour his own foundation. And the only thing he really liked more than working on things and fixing things was talking about working on things. He has this project, he built these amazing wooden kayaks, and over the years we would take these around the Pacific Northwest and use them to couple kayakers. And if you were one of the guys in the ferry line who walked up and said, "Oh, those are beautiful kayaks," get ready to lose an hour of your time, because he was going to tell you how these kayaks were built, everything about them. We used to have this joke that if someone walked up and asked him when the next ferry was sailing, he would be like, "Oh, thank you. They're made out of balsa wood and they're stitching glue and they're fiberglass," and people would just look at him. But what was really neat about it is he would just get this sparkle in his eye, and people who didn't give a rip about kayak building would get sucked into it and be fascinated by it. So that was something that I thought was just really spectacular. And just by his nature, he liked fixing things. He liked doing things. That when he went to work at the Costco lab, I just think that was. I know there's a lot of people from Costco here. I don't know all of them, but I have to say, he just loved it there, and he loved being at the lab. He loved everyone he worked with, or mostly everyone he worked with. And he was just lucky enough to be a guy who found the job that was perfect for him. And when I think about him, I come from a large Irish Catholic family, and what we do as a large Irish Catholic family is we worry a lot about everything. And he just never worried about it. He never did. He just, let's go out. If we break it, we'll fix it. Let's mess around and let's find out. Let's go to Switzerland, buy this new equipment. Hopefully it works. Maybe it won't. This kind of thing. And that for me was, I think that was what I learned the most from him, was that just to kind of, it's going to be okay. Take things in stride. And I think that I'm very grateful for him for that. So, excuse me. So, okay. I think when he was my father-in-law, but I think for me, I really felt like he was a friend. And I'm sad that he's gone. So that's all. Thank you.
Ceremonies, I think you'd be surprised at this crowd. I'm not. I just want to briefly talk about him just a little bit. My husband and I sometimes talk about current events and stories and things that have happened to us. And we kind of, before we go to events and parties, we say, is this story party ready? If one person says the story is not party ready, it's locked in the vault. It's not something that you can tell them, okay? That's one of our baselines. Okay. So, not too long ago, my dad told me about his most embarrassing Costco story. I'm not sure he would think that it's party ready, but he has no say anymore. So I'm just going to say I'm the only vote. It's party ready today. Early on in his Costco days, he was at a meeting wasn't late, but he's always on a mission. He probably wanted to be in the right place at the right time. And I think maybe some of you have seen him walk. He walks fast and with purpose. So he's walking down the hall, going to wherever he's trying to be in the meeting, and he comes around a corner and boom, runs into another person. Papers go flying. The man that he hit fell to the floor, and it was just a collision. And my dad obviously had the momentum, and the other person did not. He was on the floor. My dad got up, was picking up all the papers, profusely saying, I'm so sorry, and picking up this other man off the floor. I think that would probably be an embarrassing moment for anyone. I think what made that my dad's most embarrassing moment was that it happened to be that he had knocked Jim Senegal, the CEO of Costco, back on the I wasn't surprised by the story because my whole life my dad walked very fast. In fact, when I was young, I had to run to keep up with him. And as I aged, I finally became that fast walker as well. I am a very fast walker, and now my husband has to run to keep up with me. The cycle of abuse. I was surprised to hear that he was embarrassed because my whole life I was never saw my dad frazzled. If something broke, he just fixed it. If a plan wasn't complete, he just crossed each bridge when he came to it. And if there was no bridge, he would build one. Sometimes I think he was upset if there was a bridge. Growing up, I always felt that if there was any problem, my dad could fix it. He taught me if I ever had a problem that I could fix it. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts my father could have given to me, and I will definitely miss him. So thank you.
Just kind of a quick one. I'm in the optical business, started working with Mike in the mid-'80s. I had dinner at his house with Amy when she was 14. And installed software manufacturing operations into kind of all the laboratories that he worked in. One thing that, what he did up at Costco, up in Washington here, was really a big deal. But one thing that there's a laboratory now in San Diego, there's a laboratory in Montreal, there's a laboratory in Mexico City. And the model was created by Mike. And those laboratories are making 25 to 30,000 pair of glasses every single day, based on a model that Mike put together, for Costco. He was always great to work with. He was as curious a customer as I've ever worked with. Was not afraid of breaking something because he might figure out a way to then make it better. And it was a blast working with him. And so I just wanted to share that with you too. And when you start working, he was a good friend to everybody who got into it with him too. So it's just wonderful. So we'll miss him.
Hi, my name is Bill, and I just want to pass on my favorite with Mike. I'm from the optical business and in the software side of it as well. And I first met Mike up in Costco, Tukwila, and he took me out and we were talking about our software system. And he says, I have to take you somewhere, first of all. He says, we can't, at Costco, buy our vendors, and you can't buy anything, but we can all buy some coffee or something. So he took me to Starbucks. It happened to be the first time I'd ever been in Starbucks. He introduced me to the thing that I'm hooked on for life. Triple macchiato, grande cup, and a twist of this, and a hit of this, and I'm still hooked on it to this day. So thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. It's better than any software business or optical business. He was a dear friend as well as a good customer of ours.
Well, I've been here and I've heard all these wonderful things about Mike. He can do anything, but ask him to clean carpet. We were 20 years old, Mike and I shared, well, we were always, his birthday was in May, mine was September, and he always said he was the oldest. So we were just married, and Kirk and I had bought this house, and he said, I'm gonna come over and clean your carpet, and I'm gonna help you, and I said, okay. So I watched as he and Kirk went out in the kitchen, got boiling water, and we had wool carpet. And they took Tide, and they just sprinkled Tide all over the proceeded to pour this water over this, and then with scrub brushes, they go, we're gonna scrub this carpet and get it clean. So I said, okay, let's go to dinner. We went up to Bush's on 6th Avenue. I don't know if any of you know Tacoma, used to be there. We had dinner, and we came back, and we walked in the house, and I go, oh goodness, this carpet has shrunk that. And so for all of you, he did wonderful things. He couldn't clean the carpet. He was a dear friend for what, 60-some years? Maybe longer than that, but for us, it was 5 to 60 years in his life. Thank you so much.
I've been really fortunate for the past 25 years of being one of Mike's travel companions, along with my family right in there. And I'm not sure if Mike took many vacations before we came along, but he did. He looked forward to those vacations all the time. Courageous man. Thirst for knowledge was unquenchable. He just loved to know how things worked and how they fit. But I'd like to talk about a part of Mike that personal. Like I said, he was such a courageous guy, and I'd like to talk about his compassion and his love for every one of us in this room. I'm a big believer in stories. Stories kind of like what define who we are. And the one that strikes me so much is he shared a lot of really meaningful stories. I saw him in action with Vivian, who was his grandmother, to Davey and Steve and Bush and a lot of folks here. And Vivian's daughter was in her last few hours of this life. And with such compassion in Mike's face. He talked about his experience of escorting Vivian down to see her daughter one last time. It's one of the few times I saw Mike just lose it. Because it was his responsibility to take Vivian down, and he always talked about Vivian would reach up and say, Mike, is this the last time I'm going to see my daughter? And Mike, with his courageousness, said, yeah. He talked about getting on one knee and just being there for her. Nothing tougher for him. And I thought it was a beautiful story. I wanted to share.
I got a couple of tears. My name's Sue, and I've known Mike 40 years. I think going back, worked with him in Davie at Octocraft, and then had an opportunity to go to work for him at Costco. And so off and on for 40 years, sometimes working more closely than others, I've gotten to know him pretty well. We fought sometimes, we laughed sometimes, but the things that people have said about him, the curiosity, that was amazing. I've never known anybody that was as curious as Mike, and generous, almost to a fault sometimes. But I do have to say that one thing that I really appreciate from Mike, and always have, is the fact that I always knew that he had my back. And he kind of gave me my wings. He allowed me to grow and never stood in my way, and helped all along. So I have a lot of fond memories of traveling with him and working with him. Too many to count, but I do have to say that I know he'll be missed by everyone, and the number of people here is really a testament to that. So I'll miss him. Thanks.
My name's Henry. I first met Mike through Davie. Davie was a customer of ours from the other lab that I worked for. She knew I was unhappy, so, well, call Mike. Call Mike. You need to go call Mike. So, set up an interview with Sue and Mike. I got there at 3 in the afternoon, and I got out there at 7. But Mike was such a mentor for all of us managers. It was beyond optics. We already had the experience as some of us that he brought over. It was never a question of that, but the things that he taught, like Scott and I, we both came from a different lab. And one time we were doing the remodel with the edging department and the surface, and he says, well, you guys are gonna handle it. Okay. Neither one of us had that experience to set something up like that, and he goes on vacation. But some of the really fun memories back then we were just turning into robotics and all the machines. Well, the edgers had dry cut and they had this vacuum. Well, this huge vacuum system was outside. And he goes, Henry, let's go out there and see if those filters are doing their job. Oh, okay. So we get out there, and he said they had a blowout when you turned them off, so it'd be 12 blowouts. And he says, I'll count, and then you can open it up and check the filters. So I said, all right, let me know. So I'm up on the ladder, and he says, okay, that was it. And I opened the thing, pulled the first filter out. The second filter, you had to almost climb inside the machine. It blew. I walked back to the lab, I looked like Casper the Ghost. And we had a few other ones like that too. One time, he had machines. They were huge machines. And he came by and he says, what's going on? I go, well, it's stuck. He says, oh. So he says, okay, I'm going to go under the machine, and you go inside the machine. So I'm crawled up inside this window next, inside the machine. Spent 3 hours in there, cramped up. He's under the machine for 3 hours. We finally get the part out, and I said, okay, I'm going to lunch. Come back from lunch to go past the maintenance room, and he says, Henry, come here. I go, what? And he starts laughing, and he goes, all we had to do is push air up the drug, it would have been okay. But he was such a mentor for us. I had the opportunity to talk to him a couple months ago, and he couldn't get him off the phone. We were going to go have coffee, so he still owes me that cup of coffee. But we all really love Mike. It was, like I said, he was a mentor to all of us.
That's, I am Mike's youngest daughter. But my favorite memory that I have with him was I was in elementary school. My sister was in junior high, and he was driving my sister to school first, and he looked at us and he was like, "Do you guys really want to go to school?" I took my sister's school, and he looked at me and he's like, "So do you want to go to school or do you want to go to Seattle shopping?" My sister getting out of the car going, "Yeah, right, Dad." And she got out of the car and went to school, door shut, and he looked at me and he's like, "So what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to Seattle shopping." Best day of my life. So,
And I've known Michael all my life. My grandfather and Michael's father came out to the Pacific Northwest together. My grandfather was an eye doctor. Michael's father was a glasses guy. So I knew him when he was very annoying when I was young. He had a big brother. I knew him when he did silly things like his boat broke, and instead of anchoring out somewhere, we backed all the way from Heron Island to the totem boat in Tacoma, backwards. Then he introduced you to Scotch, bourbon. He introduced me to Tanqueray. I know he did. And later he became my brother-in-law and the father of my wonderful nieces. He was, because we were all from Tacoma, we had very similar friends in a place in eastern Washington that we all had. And it's just really been nice to hear all your stories today and how much you care. Thank you very much.
I'm Mark Fahey. I am John's mom and Amy's dreaded mother-in-law. So the first thing I want to say is I am very appreciative of Mike because he gave Amy 50% of her genes and she is a daughter of my heart. So I thank Mike for the gift of my beautiful daughter-in-law, Amy. It is so fun. And that sounds strange, but it is fun and nice to be together to honor Mike because we get to hear so many facets about him that we don't know. And I honestly didn't know Mike really well for a variety of reasons. We never really got to spend a lot of time together, but I heard a lot about Mike through Amy, and I remember a lot of stories that she's told me about him. I remember her telling me about his actually flying, piloting a plane, taking his family up into an airplane, and letting the family fly it. And I just went, oh my God, thank God we still have Amy. So I tend to think of Mike as Wild Mike. It's fun to hear about his compassion and his caring and all the experiences that everybody has had with Mike. But my experience with Mike was Mild Mike. When we were all getting acquainted, the idea came up that we should go to Montana and go snowmobiling. Mike loved the outdoors, and the family grew up doing all of these wild and crazy things. I did not, nor did my family, but we packed up the whole family and we headed to Montana to go snowmobiling. We got our snowmobiles, we got into the line, Mike's directions were never let up on the throttle. So we headed down this very benign trail. Seemed wonderful. I'm following Mike. Everybody else is behind me, and there were, well, we're a family. I have 6 children. John is one of 6, and all the kids were trailing behind us. And so, all of a sudden, as we're going down this trail, Mike takes off to the left. I follow Mike. Suddenly, we're heading up a mountain, and we're getting steeper and higher, and I suddenly realized there's nobody behind me. And I let up on the throttle. I pulled off to the left because I had no idea where we were going and where anybody was behind me. And the snowmobile dropped into the heavy snow to the left of the trail. And all of a sudden, here I am in no man's land. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Anyway, Mike kept going, and eventually I heard another snowmobile. It was my son John, who was used to Mike's antics, coming up the trail to find me. He turned the snowmobile around, we headed back down, and later, Mike joins us again. He comes down, and he went, what happened to all of you? And so we told him that I had tried to follow him and didn't make it very far, and he said, I told you, don't ever let up on the throttle. So there you go. That's what I remember about Mike. That wonderful love of life and that adventure spirit that he had, and the bonding moments that we had. And he actually taught me a lesson in life. You just have to always go full throttle. God bless Mike, and thank Mike for my beautiful daughter-in-law.
So, unless anyone has anything else to say, I actually I really enjoyed that. It was nice, like my mom said, to hear some very different facets of his life. And one of the things that strikes me is knowing Mike as I do, he was fascinating, he was really cool, and he would actually be surprised at this group of people here who just would have been like, oh, why did they come here? Why aren't they not doing something else? So, something I meant to say earlier, and I just noticed it from what everyone talked about, I think one of the defining things about him as a guy who would and enjoyed fixing everything is he was always so generous with his time and with his talents. And so I think there's probably many, many people in this room, myself included, who were always blown away by his ability to just roll the sleeves, drop everything, and help people out. He was overall, above all, very generous and very kind. And I want to say on behalf of his family, we really much, very much appreciate you guys all coming out to celebrate his life. So thank you very much.